Humans live almost everywhere on Earth, from tropical rainforests near the equator to frozen tundras in the Arctic, from deserts and grasslands to mountains thousands of meters above sea level. And wherever humans settled, something interesting happened. People began to look different. Skin tones varied from very light to very dark. Hair can be straight, wavy, or tightly curled. Facial features differ across populations. Even the way our bodies react to alcohol or produce body odor can vary depending on ancestry. At first glance, it might seem like humans developed into completely separate groups over time. But modern genetics suggests something surprising. All humans share roughly 99.9% of the same DNA. So if we are so similar genetically, why do we look different at all? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning of our species. For many years, scientists believed the story of human origins followed a fairly simple path. Early human ancestors evolved in Africa, gradually developing into modern humans, Homo sapiens, roughly 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. But our story goes back even further than that. Those early humans trace their ancestry to ancient ape-like primates that lived millions of years ago. Over time, different human species appeared, including Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, and several others. Eventually, one branch developed the physical and cognitive traits we associate with modern humans today. But new genetic research suggests the story may be more complicated than previously thought. A recent genetic study suggests modern humans may not have come from just one ancestral population. Instead, our species may be the result of two ancient human populations that separated from each other around 1.5 million years ago, and later mixed again roughly 300,000 years ago. When these populations merged, one group contributed most of the genetic makeup of modern humans, while the other contributed a smaller portion. This idea suggests that human evolution may not resemble a simple family tree. Instead, it may look more like a braided stream, where populations separate, evolve independently, and sometimes reconnect again. So while the picture of human origins is becoming clearer, it is not yet fully understood. What researchers do broadly agree on is that the earliest modern humans likely appeared in Africa, and they likely shared many physical traits in common. If we could travel back hundreds of thousands of years, the first modern humans would probably look familiar, but not identical to us. Early Homo sapiens already had many of the features we see today. Rounded skulls, relatively flat faces, and smaller teeth compared to earlier human species. But scientists believe they likely had darkly pigmented skin. This conclusion comes from both genetics and environmental evidence. Early humans evolved in equatorial Africa, where ultraviolet radiation from the sun is extremely intense. Skin contains a pigment called melanin, which protects cells from UV damage and helps preserve important nutrients such as folate. Higher melanin levels create darker skin and provide stronger protection in high sunlight environments. Because of this, many researchers believe the earliest humans likely had dark skin, dark hair, and dark eyes, traits well suited for life in equatorial regions. Here's an example of what the National History Museum thinks we used to look like 30,000 years ago in prehistoric Europe. But humans did not remain in one place. Over time, populations began moving across the planet. And as they did, the environment began shaping human biology in new ways. From these early populations in Africa, small groups of humans gradually began moving into other parts of the world. This process did not happen all at once, and it was not the result of a single journey. Instead, it unfolded slowly over many thousands of years as different groups explored new regions and settled in unfamiliar environments. Around 100,000 years ago, some populations began leaving Africa and moving into nearby areas of the Middle East. From there, over many generations, people continued spreading outward. Some groups moved east across Asia, while others continued further south into Southeast Asia and eventually reached Australia. Other populations traveled north and west, eventually spreading into what we now know as Europe. Much later, other populations made their way into the Americas. During the last ice age, lower sea levels exposed a land bridge connecting Siberia and Alaska, which likely allowed humans to cross into the American continents. These migrations happened gradually. Small groups would move into a new region, settle there for long periods, and slowly expand into the surrounding areas. Over time, this pattern repeated again and again, allowing humans to spread across nearly every part of the planet. As people entered these new regions, they encountered environments very different from those their ancestors had known in Africa. Climates varied widely, from freezing northern landscapes to hot tropical regions. The foods available were different, and so were the diseases present in each area. Over many generations, these environmental pressures began influencing human populations through the process of natural selection. Traits that helped individuals survive and reproduce in particular environments slowly became more common within those groups. Gradually, as populations remained separated across different regions of the world, visible differences between them began to emerge. One of the most noticeable differences between human populations is skin color. Scientists now understand that skin color evolved largely as a balance between two biological needs. The first is protection from ultraviolet radiation. Sunlight contains different types of ultraviolet light, mainly known as UVA and UVB. These wavelengths interact with the skin in different ways. UVB carries more energy and plays an important role in vitamin D production in the skin, while UVA penetrates deeper into the skin and contributes to long-term cellular damage. Near the equator, sunlight is strong throughout the year. In these regions, darker skin, which contains higher levels of melanin, helps absorb and disperse much of the incoming ultraviolet radiation in the outer layers of the skin. With higher melanin levels, more UVB is absorbed near the surface before it can reach living skin cells, which reduces the risk of sunburn and DNA damage in deeper tissues. Farther from the equator, however, sunlight becomes less intense. Humans rely on ultraviolet B radiation to produce vitamin D, which is important for bone health and the immune system. In lower sunlight environments, lighter skin, which contains less melanin, allows more UVB to reach living skin cells, helping the body produce enough vitamin D. Melanin also affects how the skin responds to ultraviolet A or UVA radiation. UVA penetrates deeper into the skin than UVB, reaching the dermis where it can contribute to photoaging and oxidative damage over time. Higher levels of melanin provide some protection by absorbing and scattering this radiation, reducing how much reaches deeper tissues. In contrast, skin with lower melanin levels allows more UVA to penetrate into these deeper layers, which is why it is generally more susceptible to long-term sun-related damage. Over thousands of years, these environmental pressures shaped skin pigmentation across different regions. Climate may also have influenced other physical traits. For example, the shape of the nose can affect how air is processed before it reaches the lungs. In colder and drier climates, narrower noses with longer nasal passages may help warm and humidify the air more efficiently as it is inhaled. In warmer and more humid environments, wider nasal passages may allow air to move more freely through the nose. Body size may also reflect adaptation to temperature. Research comparing hundreds of human fossils suggests that populations living in colder climates tended to evolve larger bodies, while those in warmer regions tended to be smaller. Larger bodies lose heat more slowly, which can help maintain body temperature in cold environments. Smaller bodies, on the other hand, release heat more easily, which can be beneficial in hotter climates. Body proportions may also reflect adaptation to temperature. One commonly discussed pattern, known as Allen's rule, suggests that populations in warmer climates tend to have longer limbs relative to their body size, while populations in colder climates tend to have shorter limbs and more compact bodies. Longer limbs may help the body release heat more effectively, while shorter limbs can help reduce heat loss in colder environments. However, research suggests that limb length alone has only a small effect on overall heat exchange compared to other aspects of body size and shape. Hair texture may also play a role in how the body interacts with heat and sunlight. Tightly curled hair can create a layer of air between the hair and the scalp, which may help reduce the amount of direct solar radiation reaching the skin while still allowing heat to escape. Straighter hair, which lies flatter against the head, may allow heat to dissipate differently in cooler environments. Together, these variations illustrate how human populations gradually responded to different environmental conditions over many thousands of years. Natural selection was not the only process shaping human populations. Patterns of mate choice may also have played a role. Across different cultures and environments, people often developed preferences for certain physical traits. Over many generations, individuals who possessed traits that were more commonly preferred within a population were more likely to form partnerships and have children. Not all human differences are visible. Some involve how our bodies process certain chemicals. For example, a significant percentage of people in East Asian and Southeast Asian populations carry a genetic variation that affects how alcohol is metabolized. When alcohol enters the body, it is first converted into a compound called acetaldehyde, which is toxic. Normally, another enzyme quickly breaks this compound down, but in people with a particular genetic variant, this process happens more slowly. As a result, acetaldehyde builds up temporarily in the body, causing symptoms such as facial flushing, nausea, and rapid heart rate. Another interesting example involves body odor. A gene known as ABCC11 affects how certain sweat glands function. One version of this gene produces stronger odor, while another produces significantly less. The low odor version is extremely common in many East Asian populations and is also linked to a trait known as dry earwax. Human earwax generally exists in two forms, wet and dry. The wet type is sticky and yellowish, while the dry type is lighter in color and more flaky. Exactly why this gene became common in some regions is still debated, but it shows how small genetic variations can influence everyday biological traits. One possibility involves patterns of mate choice. In some societies, individuals with lower levels of body odor may have been socially or culturally preferred. Another explanation involves genetic drift and founder effects, when small groups of people migrated and established new populations. Certain traits could become very common simply because many of the early members happened to carry them. Some researchers have also suggested that reduced sweat gland activity might have offered minor advantages in colder environments, although evidence for this idea is weaker than for other adaptations such as skin pigmentation. Some of the most striking examples of human adaptation occur in populations living in extreme environments. One example can be found in communities living in La Rinconada, one of the highest permanent settlements on Earth. This town sits at an altitude of around 5,100 meters above sea level, or about 16,700 feet in the Andes Mountains. By comparison, most of the United Kingdom lies close to sea level, with an average elevation of only about 160 meters, or roughly 500 feet. At such extreme altitudes, the air contains far less oxygen than it does at sea level. Many people who travel to these heights experience shortness of breath, fatigue, headaches, and other symptoms of altitude sickness because the body struggles to deliver enough oxygen to its tissues. However, populations whose ancestors have lived in high altitude regions of the Andes for many generations show biological adaptations that help them cope with these conditions. Research suggests that some of these populations have developed physiological traits that allow their bodies to make better use of the limited oxygen available. These adaptations can help maintain oxygen delivery to tissues even in environments where the air is thin and oxygen levels are significantly reduced. Over many generations, living in such extreme environments has shaped how the human body responds to altitude, providing another example of how human populations can gradually adapt to the conditions around them. Another factor scientists study is the role of diet. Different cultures have historically relied on very different foods. Some populations traditionally consumed large amounts of starch-rich grains. Others relied more heavily on protein-rich seafood or animal products. Over long periods, diets can influence genetic adaptations. One example involves lactose, the natural sugar found in milk. In many populations, the ability to digest lactose declines after childhood, but in societies that historically practiced cattle herding and depended on dairy products, the ability to digest lactose into adulthood became increasingly common over time. Another example involves the amylase gene, which produces an enzyme that helps break down starch. Populations with historically high starch diets often carry more copies of this gene. These examples suggest that long-term dietary patterns can shape certain aspects of human biology, particularly metabolism and digestion. Despite these visible differences, human populations are far more alike than they are different. From a genetic perspective, all humans share the vast majority of their DNA. In fact, most genetic variation exists within populations rather than between them. This means that two individuals from the same region can sometimes be more genetically different from each other than either is from someone living on another continent. Rather than forming clear biological categories, human diversity exists along a gradual spectrum shaped by migration, adaptation, and thousands of years of shared history. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, questions, or think there's something I didn't cover, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to read them.